ठीक है। So this is something that I believe I have already taught you in second year, but we need to again go through it because it is a part of your syllabus first, and second, आप लोग उस वक्त कितना ध्यान से पढ़े थे, क्योंकि the medium was that I did not have this board etc. So what I did was I prepared a YouTube video and I circulated it to you. So, and in during the session that was held after you saw that video, there were no questions asked. So no questions asked means that you are either intelligent enough or you have actually not gone through it very seriously. And both the things cannot be true at the same time. So we'll be going through it once again. Now, let us start with pure bending. So pure bending, what happens that this is applicable for beams. So let us say you have this beam and it is simply supported over a certain length. This is a length and it is simply supported. So the under the influence of this load, what happens that uh, this beam will change its, it will deflect by a certain amount like this. Now phenomena, this phenomena is called as bending, and the effect is called as deflection. Now this we will study right now, and this is your second chapter in unit 2. अभी जो यूनिट चल रही है सेकंड, इसी में आफ्टर वी स्टडी बेंडिंग वी विल बी स्टार्टिंग विद डिफ्लेक्शन वेयर वी विल बी कैलकुलेटिंग. ठीक. So here what actually happens is this type in which the beam bends in the downwards direction is called as sagging. This is called as sagging moment, or the moment which produces this effect is called as sagging moment, and the phenomena or the type of bending is named as sagging. You may have a situation where this is your beam. This is applicable when the load is acting like this. Suppose the load is acting like this, you may have a phenomena that it is loaded like this. So this is called as hogging. This phenomena is called as hogging, and the forces or the moment which produce this are called as hogging moment. Okay, so these are this is sagging. This so sagging is predominantly visible, and hogging is not visible or it is not applicable because to introduce a load of this type, you need to put some effort. Here the load is due to virtue of gravity only. If you apply some, if you keep anything, it has everything as a weight. So this weight will be acting as a load and it will be producing some sagging moment. Now, in a beam, sorry, if you have this beam and it is subjected to, let us say, sagging. So the if this is your if you say this was your centroidal axis before the application of load, After the application of load, this has become your centroidal axis. So all layers, all layers above the centroidal axis are in compression, whereas layers below the centroidal axis are in tension. So this you can very well see that if suppose you take, you see the camera, and this is your beam. If it gets deformed like this due to the application of load, so this is your layers which are below the centroidal axis. These are in tension, and if you look at this portion, these are layers which are above the centroidal axis, and they are in compression because the skin has come closer to each other. Here the skin has been pulled from one point to another. So if from compression you are going to tension, that means you have a point where the stresses are zero. So stresses are zero at the centroidal axis. At the centroidal axis, the magnitude of stresses are zero. So the magnitude of stresses above the centroidal axis have some value, but they are compressive in nature, and the ones which are below it are tensile in nature. Okay, so this is the basic phenomenon. Now, what happens? These pure bending is all. This pure bending is always with shear. Shear is present, but for simplicity, what we do? But for simplicity, it is neglected. So shear stresses in beams we find out, but we find them out separately. We do not introduce into the bending equation because to derive the bending equation, what we have done is we have removed the or we have neglected the shear component. If at all you want to find out the shear component, because shear component has to be there because you are having shear forces at each and every point of the beam. So when you have shear forces, these shear forces will have definitely have an effect. So to estimate their effect, what we do is we calculate them separately by that you will be doing in the future classes. So right now what we are doing is for simplicity, while deriving the bending equation, we will be neglecting their effect. Okay. So should I rub this?
No, sir. 2 minutes. हो गया सर।
सर
हाँ,
सर ये जो आपने स्टेटमेंट लिखी है कि ऑल द लेयर्स अबव द सेंट्रोइडल एक्सिस आर इन कंप्रेशन और बिलो आर टेंशन, सर ये स्टेटमेंट के केस में होगा ना?
ये सिर्फ सैगिंग के केस में होगा। अगर हॉगिंग हो गया तो ये रिवर्स हो जाएगा। ये आपको समझ में आया कि क्यों हो रहा है? सही,
हाँ सर।
ठीक है। शुड आई रब दिस? So now let us introduce another term to it, neutral layer. So neutral layer क्या है? इससे due to bending moment, tensile stresses are developed in one portion of the beam and compressive stresses on the other. Now there exists a layer where stresses are 0. This layer is called as neutral layer. So, ठीक है, for initially straight beams, the centroidal axis is the neutral layer. ये टर्म इंट्रोड्यूस क्यों किया गया उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन है. फॉर इनिशियली कर्व्ड बीम्स, now this is your unit 5. Centroidal axis and neutral axis differ. ठीक. Now if you come to the explanation of it, centroidal axis is a geometrical phenomena. And neutral axis is a mathematical concept. ठीक है. So geometrical phenomena means if you have a cross section, you have a centroidal axis, irrespective of what the type of loading is. But if you have a cross section, that does not mean that you have a neutral axis. So the neutral axis is the point or is the layer on which the stresses are 0. For initially straight beams that we'll be learning in unit 2, the centroidal axis and the neutral axis will coincide. The reason why they'll coincide mathematically I'll show you. But in unit 5, the centroidal axis and neutral axis in the chapter curved beams, they will not coincide. So if they do not coincide, what will happen is you will have a situation where both of them have to be found out separately, one with the help of mathematics and the other with the help of geometry. So with the help of geometry, it is always predictable that this is your centroidal axis. but it has to be supported by mathematical concept. ठीक है? Should I rub this?
Wait, sir.
No, sir.
हाँ जी, एक दो लोग और यस सर बोल दिया करो, ऐसा ना हो कि बाकी लोग जब तक बोलते हो तब तक मिट ही जाता हो.
Yes, sir.
Now, before deriving the equation, let us have a statement of assumptions. Assumptions made in derivation of. हाँ जी. Bending equation. So the first is the beam is initially straight. ठीक. Second is each layer is free to contract or expand independently. ठीक. Third is material is homogeneous and isotropic. The fourth is the body is loaded until elastic limits only. ठीक है. So these are four prominent, you can say, assumptions which are made in the derivation of the bending equation. In different books, you have 5, 6, 4 number of assumptions, but they all actually point to these four only. ठीक. So the first assumption is the beam is initially straight. So beam is initially straight means you will be having a beam which will be subjected to load, and before the application of load, the beam will remain straight. Okay, so it will not be a curved beam because the same bending equation is not applicable for a curved beam. For a curved beam, you need to derive a different bending equation. So if the beam is initially straight, then only you have this bending equation valid. Second is each layer is free to expand and contract independently. Now what actually happens is, it is well known that a body is made up of n number of layers. If one layer gives you a restriction to the expansion of other, then there will be internal stresses produced due to the intermixing of layers, which are of different magnitude. They can also be found out, but they are of different magnitude. What we are assuming is that the stresses are produced due to the effect of the applied load only. We are not taking into consideration the stresses which may be taking place or which may be happening due to the restriction posed by nearby layers to contraction and expansion. So we are neglecting this effect that the stresses, the layers will be actually giving you any restriction to each other. Third one is the material is homogeneous and isotropic. So homogeneous means it has the same chemical composition. Isotropic means that it is having the same mechanical properties in all three directions, x, y, and z. Now the next one is the body is loaded until elastic limits only. So this statement means that you will be when you are until elastic limits only, you have uh, a mathematical equation till the elastic limits only, you have a mathematical relationship which is valid. Beyond elastic limit, you do not have any mathematical relationship which signifies the relation between stress and strain. So for all mathematical relationships to be valid, you need a mathematical relation. So mathematical relation, for having a mathematical relation, what you see that the Hooke's law is applicable only till elastic limits. So we'll be loading the material only till elastic limits so that we can develop a mathematical relationship or equation between them. Okay, so should I rub this?
Yes, sir.
Now let us come to the derivation of a beam bending equation. So let us say that you have a beam which has been, let us say this is a beam and it has been loaded. So what we are doing is, let us take a very small cross section of a beam. So let us take a very small portion of the beam, and this small portion, let this be some point O, from where you are calculating. This is after the application of load, this is before the application of load. Okay. So this is R, the radius of curvature, and this is theta. Now what we are doing is, let us take, and this is your centroidal axis. So till centroidal axis, we have taken the length as R. Till the centroidal axis, not till the upper layer of the beam. Remember it. This R is till the centroidal axis, or let me show it here. This distance is R. Let us have another element which is located at a distance of y from the centroidal axis. Let the centroidal axis be some value AB, and it is located at a distance y. So the initial length of the beam, the initial length is r theta. If you want to find out the length of AB, the length of AB is r theta. Now the final length of the member which is located at a distance y, this is equal to r plus y into theta. Now strain is given by final length minus initial length divided by initial length. So strain is now calculated as r plus y theta minus r theta divided by r theta. So if you see, this gives you a value y by r, because r theta they get cancelled, it becomes y theta by r theta, theta again they get cancelled, so you have y by r. So by Hooke's law, strain is equal to stress by E. So stress by E is equal to y by r, or you can say that sigma by y is equal to E by r. So this is 1/2 of your bending equation. Okay. Where unit, what are the terms that we'll see at the end of the derivation. So you have sigma by y is equal to E upon r, where sigma is your maximum or bending stresses, maximum term we'll introduce at the end of this derivation. Y is the distance of the fiber from the centroidal axis. E is the Young's modulus and R is the radius of curvature. So if you have copied it down, let me know, I'll rub it. Should I rub this?
नो सर, एक मिनट रुक जाइए.
सर y क्या एक बार एक्सप्लेन कर देंगे फिर से?
Y is the distance of the fiber from the centroidal axis. AB आपका centroidal axis है. We have chosen an elemental layer which is at a distance of Y from the centroidal axis. चीजें बहुत ध्यान से समझिएगा. मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा एट द एंड ऑफ दिस डेरिवेशन. Should I rub this? Haji, should I rub it?
Yes sir.
Yes sir.
Yes, sir.
No, what we have derived till now is sigma by E, sorry, sigma by Y is equal to E by R. So, sigma is equal to E Y by R. Now, force is equal to sigma multiplied by elemental area dA. So, this becomes equal to E Y dA by R. Now, moment. Now, this is your force equation. So, moment is equal to force into perpendicular distance. So that is, if you are talking in terms of distance y, because you are calculating the moment for the element which is located at a distance y. So this becomes f into y. Now this is replaced by m. This becomes equal to E by R into y square dA. So let this m be denoted by dm. So dm becomes equal to 0 to m. ठीक है? This is equal to E by R integral y square dA. ठीक? Now integral of dm is m. E by R is as usual, and y square dA is I. Now integral y square dA, you already know this is represented by I, and specifically it is Ixx. If we talk in specific terms, this is Ixx, but for simplicity we are representing it as I. So this becomes m by I is equal to E by R. Now E by R has already been derived here as sigma by y. So this becomes equal to sigma by y. So the final bending equation is m by I is equal to sigma by y is equal to E upon R. This is your final bending equation. Now there are few questions that need to be asked. Why only Ixx? Is there any condition where Iyy is also applicable? So these questions we'll be answering after this, after you copy this down. And I'll also be asking you one conceptual question. Let us see how many of you are able to answer. Should I rub this? हाँ जी,
Yes, sir.
सो
Yes, sir.
अगला लेक्चर आपका उसका है ना? हाँ,
ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज सर।